Yeah, hi, this is Greg, and welcome back. This is questions and answers about ADHD part 3. This is, I believe, day 12 of A Minute in the Clouds with Greg, and I've just realized, nope, I do have the right glasses on. So, we've been exploring attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, trying to shed some more light on the condition. Yesterday, I started trying to answer some questions that people often have about the condition. So we're going to pick up from where I left off. And just to recap, ADHD affects millions of people across the world. There is still a lack of understanding and a lot of misconceptions surrounding the condition. Those misconceptions, they create barriers for people who have ADHD, prevent them from getting the proper care and support that they need. So hopefully by highlighting some of the latest advancements in diagnosing and managing and treating the disorder, I can dispel some of the myths. So if you haven't seen the other videos, do check them out. You can also find accompanying articles over on gregscloud.com. If you're new to the channel, welcome. I'm very glad that you're here. If you like the videos, consider subscribing, hitting the bell to be notified when I post more content. It's not easy to create when you have ADHD, brain injury, and lots of other things going on. So any comments, likes, and feedback on how I can make these videos better is always appreciated. So let's dive in. I'm going to keep it a little bit shorter today. And the first question I've got here is, can ADHD cause depression? Okay, well, ADHD and depression, they often coexist, with up to 30% of children with ADHD also experiencing depression at some point in their lives. The overlapping symptoms can make diagnosing and treating it a challenge. Some background: ADHD and depression can coexist. They're termed as comorbid or coexisting conditions. ADHD is a brain disorder that affects focus, leading to difficulties in completing tasks and staying organized. Depression is characterized by persistent sadness, despair, and it lasts 2 weeks or longer, and it impacts daily functioning. Up to 30% of children with ADHD also suffer from a serious mood disorder like depression, and more than half of those with ADHD will experience depression treatment in their lifetime. Overlapping symptoms of ADHD and depression make diagnosing difficult, and trouble with focus and that's a shared sign of depression and ADHD. Focus can be a problem with depression, as well as ADHD. Medicines for ADHD can affect sleep or eating habits, which are also signs of depression. Family history plays a role in the development of both conditions. Treatment often involves a combination of medication and therapy. Treating the more problematic condition first may alleviate some of the causes of depression. Stimulants are commonly used to treat ADHD, but they can have side effects like reducing appetite or causing problems with sleep. Some ADHD drugs without stimulants can be used, but they might take longer to work. And we talked about some of those the other day, Strattera, and some of the more modern medicines and things that are used as a off-label or a secondary prescribing use for ADHD. Antidepressants may be prescribed for depression, but they should be closely monitored, especially in children and teenagers, due to potential side effects. Antidepressants may also help with ADHD symptoms, either alone or in combination with other drugs. Psychotherapy works and provides strategies for managing symptoms and coping with everyday challenges. And you can get more information about that on WebMD is a good place. So another question: why is ADHD so complicated? Well, unraveling the complexity of ADHD, it takes some understanding of the challenges. Adult ADHD presents unique complexities, and that differentiates it from childhood ADHD. And it's crucial to comprehend these intricacies and provide effective support and intervention for people facing the condition. So let's explore why ADHD is so complicated. Late diagnosis. Adult ADHD is often diagnosed later in life due to various factors. The absence of symptoms in childhood, symptoms being mistaken for a different condition, or people developing coping mechanisms that mask the disorder. We talked about they used to think you grew out of ADHD when you grew up, but it was just that a lot of people learned coping mechanisms, and so that can mask it. And later in life you can get the diagnosis. That's what happened with me. Symptoms do overlap. A lot of symptoms will overlap other mental health conditions like anxiety, depression, bipolar disorders, sometimes mistaken for ADHD, causing misdiagnosis. Symptoms can evolve. ADHD symptoms may evolve as a person gets older. Hyperactivity might decrease. Inattention and impulsivity, they might continue. And these changes as conditions morph and change can make it hard to get a diagnosis. The impact on daily functioning, adults with ADHD, it can really affect several aspects of life. It can interfere with your work, relationships, time management, organization. And then there's those coexisting conditions that we talked about. Adults with ADHD often experience comorbidities such as substance use disorders, sleep disorders, gambling problems, personality disorders. That complicates the diagnosing it even more. And then there's emotional regulation challenges. Emotional regulation can be difficult, and it's especially pronounced in adult ADHD, leading to mood swings, frustration, trouble handling stress. A lot of the prisons are full of people who have ADHD, weren't diagnosed. Self-esteem problems and coping mechanisms. Yeah, I could talk about that on a separate broadcast, the self-esteem, but the struggles associated with ADHD can impact someone's self-esteem, and they may develop coping mechanisms which can be both beneficial or detrimental. There's good coping mechanisms and then ones that are not so good. Medication changes, finding the right medication and the right dose is a challenge. So that makes it difficult as well. So understanding the complexities of ADHD is crucial in providing appropriate support, therapy and treatment, and to enhance daily functioning and overall well-being for people who are affected by that. Another question, how is ADHD different in girls? Just to look at some numbers with this, ADHD is usually diagnosed between the ages of 3 and 7 in children, and it affects about 9.8% of kids in the United States. Boys are more commonly diagnosed with ADHD than girls. In fact, boys are more than twice as likely to have ADHD compared to girls, and that's possibly due to differences in how the symptoms are expressed. Doctors are more likely to diagnose boys than girls, and data from the CDC, the Center for Disease Control, data from the CDC shows that approximately 13% of boys were diagnosed with ADHD between 2016 and 2019. By contrast, in that same period, only 6% of girls received the same diagnosis between 2016 and 2019. That difference in diagnosis rates between genders raises some interesting questions about potential underlying factors that can contribute to the disparity in those numbers. The discrepancy in the diagnosis rates between genders raises some interesting questions regarding the potential underlying factors and the varying prevalence of ADHD in males as opposed to females. More research and investigations needed to acquire a better understanding of that phenomena and what the ramifications of that may be or may not be. Girls with ADHD may show internalized signs such as inattention, anxiety, and boys may exhibit more externalized signs such as impulsivity, rule breaking, troublemaker, stuff like that, and presents differently in girls, oftentimes. Gender differences in ADHD. How does it manifest in girls differently? Um, it presents uniquely in girls, and that leads to distinct challenges in identifying that diagnosis and treating it. Um, Symptom presentation. As I did, boys are more likely to have externalized symptoms, hyperactivity and stuff, and girls are more internalized symptoms. Boys tend to be fidgety a lot, can't sit still. Girls with ADHD may be more likely to have problems with attention than they do with hyperactivity, and they may show restlessness or engage in quieter, um, what's considered more socially acceptable forms of hyperactivity. Unfortunately, that's a thing. Girls struggle with inattention as a primary symptom, which makes it difficult for them to stay focused. Research has found, and social coping strategies. Girls might develop better social coping skills that mask the symptoms more than boys. A lot of the time, unfortunately, girls are still um, expected to conform to societal expectations. Emotional regulation. Girls might experience challenges with emotional regulation and may tend to internalize their emotions more, leading to anxiety and low self-esteem. And academic performance. Girls might perform adequately academically, especially in early grades, as they work hard to try and compensate for difficulties. But as academic demands increase, challenges with the executive functioning and time management might start to become apparent as they get older and go, higher up through different ages in the school and stuff. Other patterns. Girls are more prone to have coexisting conditions such as anxiety, depression, eating disorders, and those additional conditions can make it a problem, harder to diagnose, to get a proper diagnosis for girls than boys. Also, girls with ADHD are more likely to experience learning disabilities, um, and they, oftentimes can become targets of bullying and abuse. Unfortunately, another question: Why? Excuse me. Why do people with ADHD struggle with indecision so much? I can't decide. I'm going to answer this now. Um, Decoding indecision. Indecision is a commonly this is a common difficulty experienced by people with ADHD. Um, it can really impact your daily life, and understanding the reasons. Um, Executive function problems, executive function deficits are a common sign for ADHD, and it can make it difficult to plan and organize and make decisions. People with executive function deficits might also have trouble managing time, staying focused, following instructions. These difficulties with cognitive processes can make it difficult and hard to think critically, weigh the pros and cons, come to a conclusive decision. Overthinking and overwhelm. People with ADHD often have lots of thoughts going on in their heads, and it can make it very difficult to focus on one thing at a time. That they may also have lots of ideas floating around in the heads, like popcorn machine going off. Oh, an idea for this, an idea for that, and it can make it hard to choose what to do. Or maybe I'll do this, maybe I'll do that. Oh, I just thought about the other, I can do that. And the fear of making the wrong decision um, can really lead to a lot of overthinking. That in of itself makes it hard to make decisions. There's the distractibility element. People with ADHD have problems focusing. It can make it difficult to make decisions. Even minor distractions can derail your thoughts. Um, and make it hard to stay on track. You just kind of lose track of where you were. Fear of failure. A lot of people with ADHD might fear uh, making decisions in case they make the wrong decision or it fails, something goes wrong, and that fear of failing can lead to avoiding making a decision altogether. People with ADHD often experience fear of failure. Um, just that fear of making the wrong decision. There's a time blindness. We talked about that the other day. People with ADHD might underestimate how much time is needed to make a choice, delay making a decision due to the time blindness, and that can lead to procrastination and then last minute decisions, which might not be the best decision. You've got the impulsivity versus analysis paralysis. ADHD can cause impulsive behavior, which can lead to snap decisions without considering consequences. But on the other hand, difficulty making decisions can also lead to paralysis, analysis paralysis, where you're unable to choose. There's too many choices, or you're analyzing it too much, pulling it, analyze it to death. Analysis paralysis. Sensory overload. I shared about that yesterday. The sensory overload that can make it very difficult to focus on making a decision. The environment can be problematic if there's a lot of stimulation going on around you. It can be difficult to make a decision because that's distracting you and making you have an anxiety, and you've got fear of missing out, FOMO. Fear of missing out's quite a significant factor in indecision to people with ADHD because, people with ADHD might fear missing out on better opportunities that might come along, better experiences, and that can lead to being indecisive about what to do because you're worried that you'll make the wrong choice, or you'll miss out on something better. You'll choose the wrong thing. Fear of missing out can be difficult to deal with. There are ways to manage it. One way is to focus on the present moment. We talked about the time perception with ADHD. There's only now, not now, oftentimes. So focus on the present moment, what you're doing right now. Another way is to remind yourself that you can always make new experiences, new opportunities in the future. And it's also important to remember that you're not alone in feeling that way. A lot of people have that fear of missing out. There's the emotional regulation aspect. People with ADHD might have difficulty regulating emotions, which can lead to impact decision making. Emotions can get in the way, cloud your judgment, poor control of your impulses. People with ADHD often have a hard time controlling impulses, and that can lead to snap decisions, not really able to weigh the pros and the cons of the situation. You've got hyper focus. People with ADHD can, become insanely focused on one thing, making it hard to switch attention to something else. I sometimes said, I could be so focused on something, the apartment could be burning down around me. My legs could be on fire and melting. And I'm like, I smell something burning. Are they burning next door? They're burning the dinner. It can be that bad. There's boredom. People with ADHD get bored very easily, which can make it difficult to stay on track with one option long enough to see it through and make a decision. That's because, oftentimes we're constantly seeking stimulation and novelty, something new, something exciting, and it can make it hard to focus on one task at a time. Problems with perfectionism. People with ADHD are more perfectionists. We have to, we think we have to be perfectionistic sometimes, and that can make it difficult to make a decision because we're afraid of making the wrong choice. If you've got ADHD and you do find it difficult to make decisions, some coping strategies that you might try: breaking down decisions and tasks into smaller steps, set a deadline for making your decision. I'm going to decide by this time. Talk to someone that you trust. Write down the pros and cons on a piece of paper. Go with your gut feeling. Reward yourself for completing a task. No, it doesn't matter how small. If you complete something, reward yourself. Be patient with yourself and don't give up. And above all else, if you need some help, don't be afraid to ask for help. People with ADHD can develop strategies to manage the indecision if we're able to recognize those factors that contribute to it. Some more tips for managing emotional regulation. If you can identify your triggers, things that make you feel angry or sad or frustrated, once you know what your triggers are, you can start to avoid them or develop coping mechanisms for dealing with them. Mindful meditation, mindfulness can be very helpful. Focusing on the present moment without judgment, it can be helpful to learn how to be mindful of your emotions and accept them without trying to change them. Just being present. Develop coping mechanisms. Other coping mechanisms that can help with ADHD. Exercise is said to be good. Relaxation techniques, progressive muscle relaxation, journaling. Always seek professional help if you need it. If you're struggling to manage your emotions, it's important that you do seek professional help. A therapist can teach you some very effective coping mechanisms that can help. So yeah, that was the questions for today, and I hope that was helpful to you. And again, if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to check out the article over on gregscloud.com. I'll try and get that posted later today. And as always, love you guys. Take care of your mind, and we'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.